Hello, guys. Recap of the 2023 Idaho Closed round two. Was played against a friend of mine. We have two over the board games. Even though there is quite the discrepancy rating wise between the two of us, he's about 1400 provisional, 1500 provisional. I'm coming in as 1800. Both games, he has always managed to put up a good fight and make me earn it. So another opponent that even if I was tempted to look down rating wise, I have experience with him. So, um, not going to be caught off guard in a game like this. So let's just see how it went. I had the black pieces, um, and I will flip the board around. I also wanted to apologize. The last video, I did not realize until the very end that I think I was slouching down, so I think you can barely see my face in that one. Hopefully, it's not too bad. Yeah. So I had the black pieces here, and I played my Sicilian with c5. And here I was honestly not really sure what he played in this line. It's been a while since we played our first couple of games, and one of the first two games. I had white. Maybe both games I had white against him. Maybe that's why I wasn't sure what he would play against c5 because I hadn't played c5 against him ever. Um, and he played c3. And this, for those of you guys who don't know, this is called the Alapins. And it's a very, very solid system for white. A lot of strong players play c3 here. And the idea is you just want to play d4, build up a strong stunter. And as black, if you're not as familiar with some of these anti-Sicilians that people have been becoming more popular again over the last several years, this can be annoying to play against because natural moves like knight c6 run into d4, and your opponent is already going to have a big center. So you do have to approach this opening in the right way for black, or you're going to get a really, really bad position. And the thing is c3 is a very, very solid system. There's a ton of lines, different variations, and they're all solid. They're all very solid for whites. And if that was not the case, there wouldn't be so many titled players who play in this fashion against the Sicilian. So d5 is the line I play against the Alpin. And then there's ed5, and there's a variety of different moves. Queen d5 is a move. Then they usually go d4. There's knight f6, which is what I opted to play. And the idea is that I don't rush to capture on d5 with the queen, but I might play knight takes d5. And here my opponent played the move d4. So he basically just said, not going to try to hold on to the d5 pawn. I'm just going to look to get my pieces out. You might say, well, how would he try to hold on to this d5 pawn? Since I didn't take it right away, maybe c3, c4. And then he's just solidifying his extra pawn. And then I'd have to play in gambit fashion with e6, attacking this d5 pawn 3 times. It's only defended 1 time. So if white wants to keep a pawn, he has to take, and I take. And here I should have plenty of compensation for being down a pawn. Because I have 2 minor pieces out already and my opponent doesn't have any. So I don't think c4 is a good move. And my opponent opted to play d4, which is a strong move. And here, a little bit of an inaccuracy for me. The computer doesn't think this decision I made is that bad, but I don't like it. I don't like it, and I'm going to do some more research on why it's not as bad as I think it is. Because I took on d4, cd4, and then my idea was that next move I'm just going to take back on d5. But he actually has the move queen a4. And why is this a big deal? Because I can block this check 3 different ways. First of all, let's rule out the bad check. Queen d7 loses the game on the spot to bishop b5, pinning my queen to my king. Then I have to go knight c6, and he's going to take with the pawn. And here I cannot even play b takes c6 because there's bishop takes c6, winning my queen for a bishop. So queen d7 is out right out of the gate. And why is this awkward here? Because we want to take on d5, but now we have to block the check with the bishop or the knight. And when we do that, we're going to lose one of our pieces that's attacking d5. So he's going to be able to just take on d4 with the queen, and he's going to have an extra pawn. So I was a little bit mad at myself here, I'm not going to lie, because now I have to treat this position like I'm going to sacrifice a pawn, because white's just going to be up a pawn. So I played knight d7, and he played queen d4. And strangely enough, I felt like this position I don't have enough compensation for a pawn, but that is not the computer eval's opinion on this. At least not the chess.com computer. I haven't checked Stockfish or anything yet. But it felt like even though I have these two knights out and my opponents just developed their queen, that I'm not going to be able to bring any sort of pressure against d5. You know, if I go knight b6, I think he can just go c4. And I feel like he's just up a pawn in the center of the board for no reason. And if I go e6 hoping for a blunder like this and I take his queen, he's not going to do that. He's going to play knight c3. And he's going to start developing his pieces naturally. And I don't see the compensation for my pawn. I don't see the compensation for my material I'm down. But it's also one of those scenarios where I don't really have a choice now. I have to play it in gambit style. So I played e5. He en passanted. And I hit his queen. So on one hand, it might look kind of good. We have 3 minor pieces out and we're ready to castle. And he's going to have to move his queen. And he's 2 moves from castling. So on one hand, it might look okay. But the reality is that this is actually already pretty much winning for white with proper play. Yeah, computer eval's saying on queen h4 is +2 already. So that's just completely winning. So the initiative is not enough. The fact that black is attacking right now and has more pieces out should not be enough. So he played queen a4 and I castled. And at this point, what I'm hoping for is that in some scenario, I can play like b6, bishop b7. Hopefully his king is castled over here. And at least I'll have the c5 bishop, the b7 bishop, the rook will be on the f-file, creating some sort of tension on the king side that might cause him to blunder. That's really what I was hoping for. But it's his move, so he played bishop d3. Oh, wow. So I actually missed this tactical shot. There is bishop takes f2 here. I'm surprised I didn't see that. Bishop takes f2. Okay, it's not going to let me. Bishop takes f2. Okay, it's being weird. Bishop takes f2. Picture it in your head, guys. King f2. There's knight c5 hitting the queen and the bishop. And if he moves the queen back to defend the bishop, somehow queen d1 or c2, we actually have our queen and our knight are both attacking the bishop. So we're actually going to win back that piece. And we got our pawn back. So I missed that. I played knight d5. And now he's back to completely winning. I played knight d5, guys, with the idea that I want to just make him think I might sacrifice my rook on f3. I don't really think rook takes f3 is a good move. But when you're in a situation where you've blundered in a game, you know, sometimes you just want to make your opponent think that something might be a threat. And hope for the best. My opponent castled. Wow, rook takes f3 is good here too. Rook takes f3 followed by knight e5. Let's look at that here for a second. Okay, rook takes f3, gf3, and knight e5. So we're attacking. f3 is undefended, d3 is undefended. His king is open, but I was trying to figure out why bishop e2 is not a move. because the computer's not even throwing that out there as an option. Computer wanted bishop c2 and just let the f3 pawn fall with check. So I guess at this point I have plenty of compensation. Interesting. Huh. But I played knight f6, so that's 2 misses already. So quite fortunate that I'm able to actually win this game missing stuff like that early on. Okay, a5. a5, the idea of a5 is just he can't kick my bishop away with b4 now because we can just win our pawn back. And then knight a3. And b6. Again, like I was saying a second ago, I want to put the bishop on b7. I want to put the bishop on b7. And I want to play actively against his king side. And he played queen e2, which is actually a blunder tactically. And this one I did see. And I played bishop takes a3, takes, and knight takes c3, hitting his queen. So I got my pawn back. But I do still have some issues in the position. One being I need to complete my development. Two being e6 pawn could be kind of weak. And also, after his queen moves, he's going to have the bishop pair is going to be annoying. But I decided I'm going to win my pawn back. I'm going to take that chance, now to get it back and hope for the best. He played queen c2, so he's attacking my knight. And now, if I move this knight, then he's going to take on h7, and he's just completely winning. He's up another pawn with check. So this knight needs to come back, which is what I played. Bishop b2. Now those bishops are looking very, very nice, pointing towards my king side, so I have to be careful. And I played queen c8. And the idea of queen c8 is that I'm looking to bring my queen over to the king side, not only for defense, but also some sort of possible attack, maybe. And originally what I wanted to do first was move the bishop somewhere. I guess that also works. But I wanted to provide a little bit of support to the e6 pawn before I move the bishop. So queen e8 first, rook a d1, and bishop d7. Oh yeah, that's right. I decided I was going to support the e6 pawn with the bishop so that I can move my queen. That was my idea. Okay, rook a d1, which is a blunder because after bishop a4, I'm going to win a rook for a bishop. He moves the queen, we take. He takes. And here, black is slightly better. White has a lot of compensation with the two bishops. And I'm in a very passive defensive position still at this point. So that's why this is not completely winning for black yet, even though I'm up material. Here I played knight f4, which is the best move. I want to target his bishop, create ideas of playing rook d1, doubling up on this pinned bishop. So my opponent doesn't really have a choice. He needs to hold on to the light square bishop and not allow rook d8, which is pretty much winning on the spot if he allows it. So bishop c4, he creates this tension against e6, two attackers. Now if I'm not defending with either my knight or my queen, he can just take and win the pawn. And I played rook d8, tempo on the queen, but that allows him to play queen b3. Now he has three attackers coming against e6. He also has pressure against b6. White has a lot of pressure. A lot of pressure here. And I found knight d5, which is actually not the best move. I'm still better, but my idea was that I was blocking off his queen and his bishop. The stronger idea here is actually just to let the e6 pawn fall with check. So queen g6, we're threatening mate, but our opponent has check on e6. And then we don't take back with the knight. We want to make sure we're still threatening mate. We just go king h8. King h8, and now he has to address the mate threat g3. And now there's knight e4. Yeah, I didn't see this. So we're hitting his rook. And knight e5 apparently is the best move. Hitting our queen. And then black is winning in this position, but I did not play queen g6. I played knight d5, which is fine. And h3 is not great because it weakens his king. Now we play queen g6 now that he doesn't have 3 attackers on e6. And now we're threatening queen takes g2, knight takes h3 stuff. He has knight h4 here. Here, I was having a little bit of debate where to put my queen. Decided to play queen h5, which is good. And then I figured he was going to play queen g3, which is what he did. So he's creating pressure against my g7 pawn, threatening mate. And here I had a little bit of a pause here, trying to decide what the best way is of defending against this mate threat. And I pretty quickly ruled out that g6 just doesn't look very good because it completely opens up this dark square diagonal. At any point in that line, if I play g6 and he could ever safely go queen c3, obviously he can't here, guys, because we take the queen. But if he could, just look at this pressure here. h8, mate threats on g7. This could get really ugly really fast. So g6 I ruled out. And if g6 is not the move, then it's got to be covering the g7 square with the rooks, one of the rooks, or dropping the queen back. And I eventually decided to play queen f7 and knight g3. So my opponent wants to bring his knight into e5 and hit my queen, or play knight g5, hitting my queen and attacking the e6 point twice. So my opponent is really creating a lot of pressure here, and I have to be careful. Again, here I took another decent think to make sure I came up with the right idea, which was rook f e8, which is good, supporting the e6 pawn. And then on knight e5, had a little bit of a pause here, checked my variations. Queen f6 is actually a move. Queen f6 is actually a move. It's not what I played, but I did consider it. The idea is that the knight can't really go anywhere useful because we're just going to take the bishop on b2 that's undefended. So that would mean knight d3 is the only move. Now the knight is defending the bishop. But here we just have queen f8. We get our queen out of the line of fire. We defend against mate. And crucially, we also defend our f4 knight a second time. Because if we moved somewhere else, he can just take our knight on f4. We don't have enough defenders. So queen f6 was a move, and I saw it, and I felt like my queen was going to be safe. And instead, I played queen f5. And here the eval kind of goes back and forth for a little while. Knight c6. So biggest threat here, guys, is he's threatening mate. Don't get drawn into the fact that he's hitting your rook. So rook d7, defending against the mate, save your rook. And then knight d4. And now I realize that my queen is under attack, and once I move my queen, there's going to be bishop b5, skewering both my rooks. So he's going to get back his sacrifice material. But there's not really anything I can do about it. I have to move the queen, and then bishop b5, skewering my rooks. And then I decide that it is the right moment to play g6 and kind of eliminate some of that pressure against g7. He took the rook. I took back. And he played queen g5. Maybe the idea of queen g5 is somehow to play queen e5 and then try to move your knight and get your queen into one of these dark squares, g7, h8. Maybe that's the idea of queen g5, but that runs into knight d3, forking two pieces which are undefended, the rook and the bishop on b2. So rook b1 is kind of forced, and then there's e5 with tempo on the knight, which also felt like a useful move because it completely shuts down the dark square diagonal. Knight f3. And now a very strong move, queen b5. The idea of queen b5, guys, is that the bishop is now under attack twice, and it can't move because the rook on b1 would be a free rook with check. So he has to defend his bishop. He can't move it. And now we play queen c4. The idea behind queen c4 is just to continue to look to improve your pieces. And I am threatening in some lines to play queen takes a2. Knight d3. And I played knight f4, protecting my knight. Takes and takes. And again, this is an equal This is an equal position. It looks like black has a little bit of pressure, but white is fine with proper play. Bishop a1 was what was played. And then I played b5. The rook was attacking my pawn on b6. He played queen e2, and I played e4. So now I've solidified my strong knight on d3, and I can bring my rook to f8 and create pressure against f2. So really I'm just trying to get him in a passive scenario. Rook b3, not a great move. Rook f8. We're attacking the f2 pawn twice with our knight and our rook, threatening to play rook f2. And my opponent played f3, and this is the move that the first move that really lost him the game. He made moves earlier that got himself in trouble, but not this bad. And this is bad because I have queen c1 check, hitting his king and his bishop, undefended bishop, crucial. And here, you might think, well, doesn't he have queen f1? And after trades, is this really that good for black? And the truth is, it's not really that great for black. Maybe good enough to get a draw, but in a 6-round tournament and being the significantly higher rated player, I'm not looking to draw this game. So we check. His king goes to h2. And now we want to improve the situation again. White has nice pieces. Black has nice pieces, excuse me. We want to continue to just torture our opponent here. So b4, because he was threatening to take, and then take and take. And interestingly enough here, guys, he can play rook takes b4. And black is winning, and it's not by knight takes b4. Because apparently queen c4, the combination of the bishop on this dark square diagonal and a queen on c4 would be good enough, I think, to get a draw, at least for white. But we don't take the rook. We just capture. We play queen f4, or we capture on f3 with the pawn. And we're winning. So, but rook takes b4 is a hard move to see. And he didn't see that anyway. He played king h1, but that loses on the spot. Queen d2, still winning, but e takes f3 wins faster. And now he played queen b1, and he actually offered a draw, and I think he knew I wasn't going to take it. But he decided to offer it anyway. And I played e takes f3, guys. E takes f3, and you might be saying, aren't you blundering a piece? Can't he play queen d3? But there is no queen takes d3 because there's queen takes g2 mate. So we can let our knight hang on d3, even rook d3, the queen g2 is still mate. And now my opponent sat here for a little while. Realization that as he was thinking about offering a draw, he took a bad position and turned it into just an awful, easy winning position for black. And I kind of thought he might resign, but he chuckled and he said, well, I'll let you play it out to mate. And so he took. And that runs into force mate, although rook takes f3 is faster than what I played. I liked knight f2. King h2. Knight g4 check. If he goes king g1, it's mate in 2. If he goes king h1, it's mate in 1. So king g3, and then what you do is you sack the knight. You let him take it. Queen f2 check. He has to take the knight. And then you check. And the fact that his king can't go to the f-file, that leaves him king h4 and rook f4. So, this is the first time I've really looked at the computer eval. I had it up the other night, but I did not see a couple of those moves were possible, including rook takes knight. I didn't realize that was so strong. I didn't see bishop takes f2 tactic, which kind of irritates me. So, but I did win this game, and was sitting at 2-0 after the first day, which is always a good feeling. You feel you've conquered a third of the tournament, and you took care of your business against your first couple lower rated opponents. And I knew, round 3 or round 4, now I'm going to be paired against people more in my rating range or higher than me. So Was looking forward to the challenge. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed this game. You learned something from it. Let me know in the comments below, and I will be back for game 3.